You know, never in a million years would I have dreamed that I would be a victim of gun violence. It just didn't make any sense. I don't think it's a matter of if anywhere anymore. I think it's a matter of when. The first time I did advocacy on gun violence prevention was at a buyback event done by Arizonans for Gun Safety. They asked me to come out and speak. It was the first time that I'd ever spoken before a large public audience on this issue. And I had been ambivalent on speaking out against gun violence specifically before that. Like, I didn't really connect my own injury to a bigger overall epidemic.
I, within 10 hours, was already doing TV, radio, and newspaper interviews to talk about what had happened.
So I started trying to let her know that I was still there, making sure that she knew that someone was with her and she wasn't alone.
It's becoming more and more common where people, within an hour or two of a shooting, are being expected to go out and talk about what happened.
So the first thing I did is try to assess who was still alive.
Prior to what happened on January 8th, I didn't really know too much about gun laws in Arizona or in the country. I had grown up around guns. I went hunting with my father, but very quickly came to realize that not only was Arizona significantly behind the rest of the country, but that even as a country we were, I think, really far where the industrial world and the civilized world was when it came to gun laws.
Doing surgery on an 11-year-old girl and not being able to help, that's hard. I've told mothers that their children have passed away because of gun violence. A 7-year-old boy standing at his door as criminals exchanged gunfire in the street. He got shot in the liver, came to us and passed away on the operating room table. I had to tell his mother. A 5-year-old girl was visiting her neighbors, and they had a gun not properly stored on the coffee table. And she was curious, as 5-year-olds are, reached up, pulled it down, shot herself in the chest, and died in the emergency room.
And I just want to leave you with one thought. The addition of a firearm to any environment in any situation unequivocally leads to the potential for further personal injury and harm.
This event sort of made me realize that I might have another pathway to creating more dialogue about it and bringing my daily experience with it to tell people gun violence is much closer to your life than you think.
In January of 2016, President Obama invited me to the White House to consult on his executive action on gun violence. While I was there, I used FDR's wheelchair ramp to get from the West Wing to the East Wing, right in front of the Rose Garden. And while I was doing that, I went, hey, wait a minute. We've had a president who was paralyzed by polio. We had a president who was a wheelchair user. And I knew then coming home that I could be elected, because that was always the drawback. You know, when I would sometimes toy with the idea, people would say, well, no one will vote for someone in a wheelchair. And I knew that that was true because I couldn't get cashiers to put change in my hand or get food servers to talk to me personally. They'd always talk to my companions. And so if I couldn't get that to happen, how could I earn a vote?
I think one of the big things that was really cemented in me on January 8th was the desire to serve and to try and help other people.
On Saturday, we all became Tucsonans. On Saturday, we all became Arizonans.
I realized how important public policy is. The work that I did on gun violence prevention for 2 years as a state director of Everytown really made me understand that in a state like Arizona, we really have a lot of work to do to catch up.
They're ready for their state lawmakers, the federal lawmakers, to begin to discuss and address this problem, begin the process of creating a solution, because we'll never create a solution if we don't begin the process. After the Parkland shooting, I tried to move a bill to ban bump stocks here in Arizona, forced a debate on the floor because we'd never had a debate on the floor of a gun safety measure. We've had plenty of debates of expanding gun use and creating more guns everywhere. We've had plenty of those types of bills.
There are students in Florida today, this week, since the last mass killings in our schools, that have shown more leadership and more courage than legislators across the country.
But the only time in my 5 years here that we've had a gun safety debate on the floor of the House was when we pushed it and used a parliamentary maneuver to force that debate. And of course my bill failed along party lines, but I had Republicans colleagues come up to me and say, I've never been so uncomfortable before. And I said, then let's continue to have these discussions so you're more comfortable.
Folks on both sides of the issue are so locked into their speaking points and hyperbole that they're doing this. And as a gun owner and a person who's been victimized by gun violence, I think I can speak authentically on both sides of that issue.
The vast majority of voters, the vast majority of citizens that live in this country and in Arizona agree that we need to tackle gun violence and really try and reduce the numbers by changing some fundamental laws. The problem has been for 45 years, there have been special interest groups that have been building up their war chests and that have been raising money and really enriching themselves by fear-mongering and by telling people, if you do this, the next thing they're going to do is take this other right away. That this is not an infringement on their rights, but this is about making sure that all Arizonans can go to a grocery store, a movie theater, or a school without being fearful that they may be injured or shot because of a firearm.
At varying levels every day, children steel themselves to go to school. They hear a loud sound and imagine there's a gunman on the other side of the door, and they're prepared for whatever they have to do. We're sending them into war zones in schools and shopping malls and bus stops because of our inaction.
I think the drumbeat for solutions on this issue is getting louder and louder from our constituents. I think our caucus has done a real good job at making sure that drumbeat is echoed, making sure that we're not letting people off the hook easy for failing to address this problem. Legislators need to take the blinders off. We came here to do the hard work.
More than 300 people shot every day in the United States. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, on your birthday, on my birthday, on Christmas. It doesn't matter. This carnage is piling up in our country.
Regular people run out. He was shooting everybody, and there was dead people everywhere.
I was hoping that we could get out and looking for all of our friends.
This year alone,
And the bills that I intend to drop in this session are ones that have been carefully researched, that have a lot of support nationally.
I know every year our caucus has introduced bills. I've introduced background check, a comprehensive system of background checks every year. I've introduced mental health firearm injunction bills, which I'm going to introduce again. I've actually come up with a compromise bill, I think, that I'm hopeful that some people on the other side might be able to at least begin to think about.
Trying to make sure that we are putting Arizona not on the map because we've had yet another tragedy, but because of the good laws that we're passing to try and protect the people that live here in the state of Arizona.
I want us to act before tragedy brings out the courage of change.